Manchester in the early 1800s was a city caught in motion. It did not simply grow, it surged, expanded, and transformed with an intensity few places in human history had ever experienced. What had once been a modest market town became, in a matter of decades, the beating industrial heart of Britain. Through AI reconstruction, we're about to step into that world, to walk its smoke-filled streets, hear its deafening factories, and witness the birth of the modern age through the eyes of those who lived it. Smoke rose constantly from chimneys that lined the skyline like iron sentinels. The air vibrated with the sound of machinery. The streets never truly rested. This was Manchester during the Industrial Revolution, a city reshaped by invention, ambition, and relentless human effort. To walk through Manchester in the 19th century was to witness the future being built in real time. Steam engines powered vast factories where cotton was spun and woven at unprecedented speed. Canals cut through neighborhoods, carrying raw materials in and finished goods out. Railways followed soon after, stitching the city into a growing national and global network of trade. But numbers alone cannot capture what happened here. Between 1801 and 1831, Manchester's population exploded from 75,000 to over 180,000. People arrived from surrounding villages at a rate of hundreds per week, drawn by promises of work. Fields vanished beneath brick. The city expanded so rapidly that mapmakers couldn't keep pace. In 1832, a factory inspector named Leonard Horner recorded the testimony of a girl named Sarah Carpenter. She was 11 years old and worked as a scavenger in a cotton mill, crawling beneath moving machinery to collect loose cotton fibers while the looms operated above her. Sarah worked from before sunrise until well after dark, 6 days a week. When asked if she ever felt tired, she replied, "I cannot stop to rest. The overlooker would beat me if the machine stopped." Her story was not unique. It was ordinary. Through AI, we can now reconstruct Sarah's world. The narrow spaces between machines where children crawled, the deafening roar that made shouting the only form of communication, the dust so thick it hung in the air like fog. This is what progress looked like at ground level. Factories dominated daily life. Their towering brick walls and tall chimneys were visible from nearly every corner of the city. Inside, machines dictated the rhythm of existence. Shifts began before sunrise and ended long after daylight faded. Many workers gradually lost their hearing, but the machines never slowed, never paused, never forgave mistakes. For many families, children's income wasn't supplementary. It was survival. A skilled adult spinner might earn 15 shillings per week. A child earned 2 to 3 shillings. But when a family of 6 lived in a single room and bread cost 8 pence per loaf, every shilling mattered. Childhood, as we understand it today, scarcely existed. The Irwell River once ran clear through Manchester's Green Valley. By 1840, it had become something else entirely. A visiting German chemist named Friedrich Engels described it as a narrow, coal-black, foul-smelling stream full of debris and refuse. Dead animals floated past workers' homes. Industrial dyes turned the water red one day, green the next, blue the day after, a toxic rainbow of chemical waste. Our AI reconstruction reveals the stark geography of inequality. The wealthy built homes upwind and upriver. The working class lived downwind, where smoke settled, and downstream, where water arrived already poisoned. You could map Manchester's class structure simply by following the direction of the wind. In 1832, cholera arrived. It killed 674 people in 3 months. In the poorest districts, 1 in every 40 residents died. In wealthy neighborhoods, the disease barely registered. The same city, 2 completely different realities separated by less than a mile. Yet Manchester did not collapse. It exploded forward. By 1850, the city produced 1/3 of the world's cotton goods. Steam technology improved year after year. Railways accelerated the movement of goods and people, shrinking distances that once took days into journeys of hours. What happened in Manchester rippled outward, reshaping industrial development across Europe and North America. Consider Thomas Wright, a composite drawn from multiple worker testimonies recorded in the 1830s and 40s. He wakes in darkness. The factory bell rings across the district. No need for a personal alarm when the entire neighborhood moves to the same schedule. He arrives at the mill before sunrise. Late by even 1 minute means a fine, a quarter day's wages. Late by more means locked out until lunch, with pay docked regardless. The machines start. The noise is immediate and total. Conversation becomes impossible. You read lips or use hand signals. Your world shrinks to the few feet around your station. First break comes hours later. 15 minutes. Oatcakes if you're lucky. Water drawn from a shared pump. Lunch arrives at midday. 30 minutes. Not enough time to go home and return, so you eat in the factory yard. Bread, cheese, maybe an onion. The machines finally stop after dark. Your ears ring in the sudden silence. The walk home feels longer than the walk in. Your body understands that tomorrow you'll do this again. This was not occasional hardship. This was the structure of life, week after week, year after year. Through AI reconstruction, we can now place ourselves in Thomas's position, see what he saw, experience the relentless repetition that defined industrial existence. But something unexpected happened in Manchester. The very conditions that ground people down also forged them into something new. A working class conscious of itself, organized, and increasingly unwilling to accept exploitation as inevitable. In 1819, 60,000 people gathered at St. Peter's Field demanding parliamentary representation and reform. Cavalry charged the peaceful crowd. 15 died. Hundreds were injured. The event became known as the Peterloo Massacre, a bitter echo of Waterloo, where British soldiers had fought for freedom just 4 years earlier. The massacre backfired. It didn't silence dissent, it amplified it. By the 1830s, Manchester had become a crucible of radical thought. The Chartist movement gained massive support here. Trade unions formed despite being technically illegal. Reformers like John Fielden, himself a factory owner, broke ranks to advocate for the 10 Hours Act, legislation limiting the workday for women and children. The fight was brutal and slow. Factory owners claimed shorter hours would bankrupt British industry. They argued that workers needed protection from their own ignorance. But the testimony of children like Sarah Carpenter, the cholera outbreaks that spread from slums to mansions, and the visible toll on workers' bodies made inaction increasingly untenable. The Factory Act of 1833 was a compromise, weak, poorly enforced, riddled with loopholes. But it existed. It established the principle that the state could regulate working conditions. From that crack in the wall, wider reforms would eventually emerge. While workers returned to cramped rooms, industrialists built a different city for themselves. Samuel Gregg, owner of Quarry Bank Mill, lived in an estate with manicured gardens, a private library, and servants' quarters larger than most workers' entire homes. His workers lived in company housing, better than city slums, but still cramped, still controlled, still dependent on his goodwill for shelter. AI reconstruction reveals these parallel worlds with stunning clarity. The broad boulevards where carriages rolled, the private clubs where deals were made over brandy, the cultural institutions, libraries, concert halls, philosophical societies that emerged from industrial wealth. This wasn't simply hypocrisy. Many industrialists genuinely believed they were agents of progress, creating opportunity where none had existed. Some were philanthropists who built schools and hospitals. Others were ruthless exploiters who viewed workers as expendable. Most were something in between, humans navigating a system that rewarded productivity above all else, operating in an era before labor rights or safety regulations existed. Even amid hardship, Manchester crackled with creativity. Engineers crowded into coffee houses to debate steam pressure ratios. Inventors filed patents at unprecedented rates. The city became a proving ground for ideas that would reshape civilization. In 1830, the Liverpool and Manchester Railway opened, the world's first intercity passenger railway. The journey that once took a full day by canal boat now took 2 hours. Witnesses described the experience as surreal, watching the landscape blur past at the previously unimaginable speed of 30 miles per hour. By 1850, Manchester had telegraph connections that could send messages to London in minutes. Information that once traveled at the speed of a horse now moved at the speed of lightning. These weren't abstract advances. They were tools that transformed daily existence. News arrived faster. Markets responded in real time. The pace of life itself accelerated. Manchester wasn't just producing goods, it was producing a new relationship between humans, machines, and time. By the 1850s, the worst excesses of early industrialization had sparked undeniable consequences. Life expectancy in Manchester's working-class districts was 17 years, lower than medieval peasants had experienced. The average factory worker was noticeably shorter than rural laborers, their growth stunted by childhood malnutrition and labor. These grim statistics eventually forced change. Public health initiatives emerged. Sanitation slowly improved. Housing regulations gradually reduced overcrowding. The reforms were incremental, incomplete, and came decades too late for those who suffered through early industrialization. But they came. And they came because Manchester made the cost of inaction impossible to ignore. Through AI reconstruction, we've walked streets that no longer exist. We've stood in factories long demolished. We've witnessed a transformation that shaped the modern world, for better and worse, in ways we still grapple with today. What we've seen is not just history, it's origin story. The 8-hour workday, born from struggles that began in Manchester. Workers' rights, forged in battles fought on these streets. Public health systems, built in response to crises that Manchester endured first. Even our urban geography, the separation of industrial, commercial, and residential zones, emerged from hard lessons learned in Manchester's chaotic growth. The story of Industrial Revolution Manchester is not simply about machines or factories. It's about people. Sarah Carpenter crawling beneath looms, workers gathering at St. Peter's Field, reformers fighting for change, inventors pushing boundaries, families enduring, adapting, surviving. Their labor-powered machines, their struggles sparked movements, their resilience shaped a century. And now, through AI, their city lives again, not as a distant memory, but as a vivid reminder of how the modern age was born and what it cost the people who built it. If this journey through 1800s Manchester moved you, like, subscribe, and let us know which era you'd like us to reconstruct next. With AI, history is no longer just a story. It's an experience we can step into together.